Hello and welcome back to We Bought a Mic, a pop culture podcast with a little bit of awardsy, buzzy ketchup today. There's a you're trying to squeeze out the ketchup a little bit, and there's a buzz coming out of it. And I guess what's a little gold man buzzing around like a little bee. You're trying to catch up to it. That's what we're doing.
I was more thinking of like the sweet, like how that last scoop, like whenever you're scraping the barrel of like a little sauce packet that you got, and it's like it tastes the best, that last little bite.
You're saving it.
Yeah. You're saving that little nugget. A little fucking nugget.
With a couple of movies that we are in the midst of kind of fitting in between when we did our best of the year and before we actually get to the end of awards season. So it's a good little sweet spot here as we now know the Oscar nominees and now know all of the Guild nominees. And after we've done our actual lists. So we're going to get into about 5 movies here for you as we chill out and hang out on the show today. Welcome. My name's Ernest.
I am a guy who catches up on awards fodder while doing cross-country airline flights, Hunter.
Oh, yeah? How many of these did you watch?
Well, just on this list, just one. But okay. There's a lot of movies that I caught up on while just flying across country. Let me tell you, I love flying. Flying is like one of my favorite things in the world. I wish that I could just like fly around.
You really did go across the country too. So that's plenty of watching time.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Florida and Nevada.
I was able to do double features on both my flights there and my flight back. It was great. Loved it.
We're going to save a couple of them because Drew's not here. As you may have heard in the previous episode, Drew is in the middle of intense negotiation talks between Russia and Ukraine. Mm-hmm. He has been appointed the mediator. He's been drafted as a podcaster into the conflict.
I just got breaking news from Drew. He says that he has to, and tell me if you can make sense of this sentence they said. He says that he's trying to become the Ricardos. I think that he watched Being the Ricardos and he thought that he needed to become one of them.
And now Putin is going to nuke Ukraine.
He said he said he's been working on his Javier Bardem impression to become Desi Arnaz. I don't know what that means. I don't know what he's trying to say.
Pray for Ukraine. Pray for Drew. We're with you. We're going to save a couple of the awards catch-up with till he gets back from the East. Is Jackass Forever awards contender?
Yeah, well, that's going to be next year. Okay. So maybe we should save that for the Oscar conversation next year.
Okay.
When I'm ready to just go all in on the Chris Pontius campaign.
By the way, if you haven't already, check out our most anticipated movies of 2022 podcast, which we just recorded for you.
If you're watching on YouTube and you're like, hey, you two are in the exact same outfits that you just were in, I promise I'm not a stinky little boy.
Maybe I'll unbutton one.
Should we, whenever we do these, should I bring multiple sets of clothes so people don't think that I'm like a little stinker who just like wears the same
whole week?
They're like, this guy really likes Modest Mouse, huh?
Well, no,
she's got the same shirt on.
This is what I want to get on board with here is, you know how in animated, like in kids cartoons or like any cartoon, they just draw the cartoon character with the exact same outfit every episode. Like SpongeBob wears the same suit every day. Mm-hmm. Patrick wears the same green pants. Like he's not changing out. Maybe once in a while you'll get the sneak peek into their closet and it's just like 15 pairs of the exact same outfit.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Unfortunately, we did already record one visual episode. I'm not wearing the same outfit as I was then.
Yeah, you were wearing a hat. You introduced yourself as like the beanie guy in the group.
That is a bad man. If only we had a producer here who would say like, first video, like for the pilot, you can't introduce yourself as the beanie guy because then people will only ever recognize you as the beanie guy. People are like, is that Drew? I don't know now because we were standing. You didn't see I'm the short one.
Yeah, he thinks you're a different guy.
Because I don't know that.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So
Luckily Moo's not barking his head off anymore, thinking that you're just a different guy.
well, it's because I took the hat off.
Yeah.
Last episode was a nightmare because I had the hat on.
Yeah. I don't think the visual listeners can see him, but the dog is still here. He is a good boy. He's sleeping just off frame.
He is passed the fuck out over there.
What
He's
a good boy. What a
he
good boy.
Watched like the chase sequence, one of them of Mad Max Fury Road, and now he's just exhausted
I'm done.
over here.
Last episode he gassed us out a couple times. So now he's all gassed out himself. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We have 5 movies here that we're fitting into this little catch-up episode. You're adding a movie.
I added a movie in there just right now. It's just
we
a
have
little,
6 movies
little
that we're
thing in
catching
there.
up on. The movie you added is not a Best Picture
No, but
nominee.
it's
So
an awards one.
why don't we start out with it since it's not, so we can sandwich the Best Picture nominees in the middle of the conversation.
All right, cool. That works.
Okay.
So I watched a little movie that it's not a Best Picture nominee, but it did get more awards love than I was expecting it to get.
A lot of people were betting on it being a Best Picture nominee. It was
so
a bit of a shock that it didn't get in there.
It didn't get a Best Picture nominee, but it got a Best Editing, which is usually those things kind of go hand in hand, that's why it was a little bit odd. I am, of course, talking about Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut, Tick, Tick, Boom.
Tick, tick, boom. That's how it's written.
Tick. No, it's tick, tick, boom. You got to really enunciate that pause right there.
Yeah. The ellipsis.
Here's the thing. I really like this movie
It's a great
lot.
movie.
People are really shitting on this movie. Some people fucking hate this movie. And the thing is, like, I kind of get it.
The Ringer is shitting on this movie for some reason. There are multiple people.
You know what? Here's the thing is that I try to hide it. I've tried to run away, like to leave my past behind. At the end of the day, I'm a theater boy.
Mm-hmm.
I came from the theater. And I'm a very simple man. I love musicals. I love a really well done musical. I will say this is a really well done musical. Yeah. I think that kind of it's to this movie's credit that the songs aren't great in it and it's still compelling.
Yeah.
I wish that the songs were a little bit better. The set pieces are great.
Do you remember when I talked about this last awards catch-up episode? I talked about how like there's a couple of songs that have that little earworm factor to them. Like they're singing happy birthday.
Yeah.
You just wanna lay down and cry. Yeah.
That's a good one.
You kind of wish that the entire musical as a whole had that. Because I feel like In the Heights has that. In the Heights has like the opening number, obviously, and then it has the 96,000, and there's a couple other moments where like you can directly remember the visual and the music together. Tick, Tick, Boom, I don't think has that, does it?
No, but I think that this movie kind of it's very different comparing this and In the Heights, because In the Heights is more,
it's such an obvious like comparison though, because the
Lin-Manuel, because the Lin-Manuel connection. But In the Heights is very classic movie musical, and that's like these are big broad set pieces with people dancing in the streets. And one of the things that I liked most about Tick, Tick, Boom is kind of more of the quieter feels like the wrong word, but like one of my favorite sequences is very early on in the film where it's the Andrew Garfield just starts breaking out in song when he has a party at his house. The Bohemia. Like that was just kind of like it felt like what theater kids who you were around growing up as a kid always wanted to be able to do, but they didn't have the talent or the ability to kind of articulate something.
Or the people around them that would welcome it.
Yeah, that were like on the same wavelength as them. Like that's kind of a thing is that kind of captures, it almost is like, and this is going to be like a strange connection, but it's like seeing how people connect in this movie. And it's different because this is a fictional story that's made with characters, not real people. But it almost kind of reminded me of like watching something like the Beatles Get Back, where it's just like they have almost like this unspoken connection with each other, where it's just like, oh, that's what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to pick up on this. I'm going to riff on that. And that's something that the best musicals are able to kind of capture that feeling in a way. And I think this movie does kind of capture that feeling.
This is
the act of spontaneity without true spontaneity.
This is based on a real guy, though.
Right. Yeah. Jonathan Larson.
Yeah.
Legend.
Who wrote Rent. Which, by the way, like the whole story of like, you know, how he dies and like the context around that. Like, I didn't know any of that before this movie. And that emotionally really works. Because like this whole movie is framed around him putting his whole life into this play that's not Rent, and it's a show that doesn't take off, you know, and it's like you're leading up to this moment that you think is the moment, and then it's not. And I really feel like that works really well when you're telling a story about like the price that you pay trying to make it as an artist. Like that's what this story is about. It's like a guy who just like sacrifices so much of himself to try to make it, and he does and he doesn't, you know, like I don't want to give I think you should see the movie. It's a really good movie. It's based on true events, and I don't want to give everything away, but like, you know, it is based on reality. Basically, he doesn't live to see the opening of Rent. Like that's the thing. That's the hook of like the end of the movie is that revelation of like,
no, that's not even the end of that's revealed I think that's the very beginning of the movie. Is they're just like, this is the story of Jonathan Larson, the man who like wrote Rent and then was never able to actually see a story come to fruition. Like that's how the movie starts. So it's not really a spoiler to say Jonathan Larson passed away way too early in his life. I do think, you know, it's interesting what this movie does. And part of it, it falls into the same trappings that a lot of these kind of movie musicals do, where it's like, oh, well, we have to have this conflict in there so that we can have the rising action. Like it's very, very, very formulaic to a fault. But I think that it does really well in those kind of formulaic tendencies. I love, first of all, that this is a story not about him writing Rent, that this is a story about his first thing that he's trying to write. And it's about him turning 30 and being like racked with this anxiety of like, well, Stephen Sondheim had already wrote West Side Story by the time he was 30. So what the fuck am I doing with my life? And then Tick, Tick, Boom isn't even a reference to the musical that he's trying to write. Tick, Tick, Boom is a memoir, a musical memoir that he's writing about his life. Yeah. Because somebody tells him like, write about what you know. Write about what you know. And then from that, he's kind of able to work through his feelings and emotions enough to eventually write Rent. But that's not how the creative process doesn't work like that for like 99.99999% of people are just like, I got it. Here's a masterpiece. Like,
and there's a moment at the end, I think can't remember what the character is. He's talking to this lady and she's like, okay, write the next one.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah.
If you're a writer,
it's really good. Now do the next one.
Goddamn. Who is it who plays that?
I believe it's Judith Light. I'm looking at IMDb. I think that's who it is.
She is incredible. I love that scene that you were talking about because that's something that I feel like just gets lost by so many people who just have this dream of just like, oh yes, I just have this idea in my head. I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to be a director. Yeah. And it's like, I did this thing. I put everything, I poured my heart and soul onto the page and here it is. But if you want this to be a career, if you want this to be your life, if you want to have a life of a writer, it doesn't just end after you. You don't just write one thing and then you're like, cool, cash my checks. I'm cashing in. I'm done. That's life. You keep working on it. You keep fucking burning that midnight oil.
Shout out to some of the other cast members though. I mean, obviously Andrew Garfield got nominated for an Oscar for this. He actually has an outside shot to upset Benedict and Will.
I think that he's in third. He's running in third right now.
Yeah.
I think behind Willie and Benny, but
he's incredible in this movie. This movie, like,
I loved his performance. sense.
This movie is not that good without him. Like, this movie is great solely because of his performance. But I also got to shout out some of the other people. Robin De Jesus as Michael.
Robin De Jesus is he's so goddamn good in this movie. I love this
Emotional.
guy. He's like mostly just a Broadway boy, but he's incredible. So
Vanessa Hudgens, shout out. High School Musical, Rise Up. Also, I don't know if this is I think this is a Lin-Manuel thing, but the structure of this movie really captivated me. How it just kind of like swirls you around. And it doesn't feel like it's cutting between these two timelines like a lot of movies do. It feels like it's like this kind of like swirling structure where you're just like constantly like bumping in and out of time. And like, I don't know, it's tough to put it into words, but it just like, it really worked how it just kind of like, you're watching the events of this guy's life. And then you're watching him performing a musical about those events on a stage. And it's not a jarring jumping back and forth between like him actually living these moments and then performing a musical about these moments. It's like a seamless, like back and forth circular structure between these two things. I found it very interesting how they kind of cut it together.
Yeah, no, it really does. It makes sense that this ended up getting a best editing nomination because you're right. Like there's a million ways why this couldn't work well, but on the same token, it kind of is like the best crutch ever for Lin-Manuel, right? He's just like, oh, for half of this movie, I get to just shoot a stage play.
Yeah.
I get to just, like, this is my bread and butter is just shooting a stage. Like, although he didn't direct. Well, did he direct Hamilton? Does he have directing credit on that?
No, he doesn't.
But like Hamilton is like, he fucking did everything for Hamilton though. Like he might as well have just directed it. So he knows stage direction more than anything in this world. So having that crutch to rely on is just kind of helps him lean on that. But it also does work to add to the story. One thing that I will say about this movie, and this goes to the supporting cast with Alexandra Shipp, who plays Susan, Jonathan Larson's main love interest in this movie. This movie gets neuroticism right in like a really a compelling way that's unique for a movie like this, because so many times in a movie like this you're just like, oh my god, fuck off to this guy. Like he just kind of becomes so unlikable, or it goes down like the Whiplash route of just like this guy's willing to do anything for greatness, to the point of like you disregard him having any kind of personal connections with anybody. And this kind of tries to ride a line in between those two things. I am still thinking about the moment where him and Andrew Garfield and Alexandra Shipp get in like this big fight with each other, and then he's just like playing piano notes on her back, like he's like thinking of how he can turn their fight into a song as it's happening. It's like, this person's insane. Like that is an insane thing to do with the
theater
person.
Kids need to be stopped at all costs.
But also I fucking love that it showed that side of like being so self-absorbed and just like, I have to finish my play. Literally nothing and no one else around me matters right now, until suddenly it does.
Right. And again, that's his performance. You know, it's like, it's this kind of really self-obsessed person that still makes you feel like his journey is worthwhile for you to kind of give your time to. It's on Netflix. Check it out. Tick, Tick, Boom. I really liked it.
I really like it too. My second favorite musical of the year last year. By Dear Evan Hansen.
I would put In the Heights over this still.
Okay.
I'd go.
That's fair. I have them right near each other.
Also, if we're counting Inside. We're counting Inside, or is that
I wasn't counting if we're counting Inside, then that pushes.
If we don't count Inside, I'd go West Side Story, In the Heights, Tick, Tick, Boom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd flip-flop Tick, Tick, Boom in the Heights, I think. I don't know. And the Heights hasn't really sat with me as well as I was hoping that would. I
love that movie.
I need to go back and rewatch it since it's on HBO Max.
Okay, now we're getting into the Best Picture nominees. And first up, we got probably the movie that took Tick Tick Boom's spot in the 10 Best Picture nominees. It's Guillermo del Toro's Nightmare Alley, starring Mr. Bradley Cooper.
Mr. fucking Bradley Cooper.
This movie, I had heard such mixed things about, and it had such a sloppy rollout. They put it out the same weekend as Spider-Man.
Yeah, just bad job by you.
Completely buried in mid-December. And then it slowly creeped its way back and found itself on streaming. It is now on Hulu and HBO Max. And dude, this is the follow-up movie from Academy Award winning director. Best Picture winning Shape of Water director, Guillermo del Toro. And it just got completely squashed. Like, it is struggling to get any attention right now. And I am shocked because this movie is amazing.
This movie fucking rules, dude. How, like, the thing is, because you said you heard mixed things about this movie. I didn't really hear anybody fawning over this movie. I mostly just heard people say, like, yeah, that was okay.
Well, friend of the pod, Harry, saw it.
Yeah, Harry loved it. And, Harry was championing it.
He said it's kind of too long. Like, it needs to be trimmed up a little bit. Like, that was like his main takeaway from what I remember. But I mean, he was still a fan of it. You know, I think nobody has dragged it. I haven't heard anybody like say it's shit.
I've seen some like pretty negative reviews about it. I've seen people just be like, it's too long. It's kind of just trying to be too many things. Right. It's like jumbled. It's a mess. And in a way, I like all the criticisms that I've heard. I can see why you have those with this movie.
Well, it is a big story. It does. For those who don't know, Bradley Cooper plays like a guy who ends up at a carnival, and he just kind of like embeds himself into the life of carnival people and kind of learns their ways and uses those ways for his own, I guess. What is he even doing?
So he's calls himself a mentalist.
Yeah,
like he's just a person.
I almost said I was gonna say career, but it's like it's not a career.
I mean, kind of. You know, he's
a swindler.
Exactly. He's a grifter.
Yeah.
He's just somebody who's just here to, like, you know, grifts people out of their money, and he does the classic con artist thing of just like, oh yeah, you've had somebody die recently and it's X, Y, and Z. Yeah. In reality, it's all using like picking up on certain like tricks, and like it's all about observing people. So much of this movie is just like, how observant are you? And it's the thing this movie actually reminded me a lot of was The Prestige. Yes. My favorite Christopher Nolan movie.
Yes.
I kept getting so many Prestige vibes while watching it. Prestige also, whenever it came out, very like mixed reviews. Nobody really talked about it. It took years to actually kind of really find more of a cult audience. And I could see the exact same thing happening with Nightmare Alley. Of course. Because this movie, I can't wait to rewatch this shit, man. Like, this movie rocks. It's one of my favorite Bradley Cooper performances ever because it plays with Bradley Cooper as we know him as movie star.
Yes. Charismatic.
It takes it that whole like charismatic.
Yes.
He's just that straight, shiny, white teeth looking guy who you fucking love Bradley Cooper. And it just makes him
hypnotize me, baby.
Yeah, you become fucking infatuated with him and with his charisma to the point where he just like drags you down into the fucking gutter with him. And you're like, yeah, take me along for the ride. I'm here for it.
It's such an interesting performance because he starts out being very I almost want to compare it to like a video game character where he's just like wordlessly interacting with all these wacky characters at the carnival.
Yeah, I mean, he does just show up. He just like literally walks right in.
He's literally like, you are in the horse cart in Skyrim, and it's like, hey, you're waking up, here you are. And it's like, that's the guy you're with for the first like 30 minutes of this movie, and you're so enamored with Willem Dafoe and Toni Collette, and you're like, oh my god, this carnival is amazing, I never want to leave here. But then you do leave and you follow Bradley And you start to pick up on a couple things. You know, the David Strathairn character is really interesting. I don't want to give too much away here because I really want people to see this movie. But you do sort of start to peel back the layers a little bit through some of these interactions with Bradley. And by the time he leaves the carnival, you have a sense of who he is and what he's capable of. And he's no longer just the nameless, wordless, faceless video game character. Mm-hmm. He is a bit of a sneaky, questionable, mysterious
He's a
person.
con artist. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing is like, it's him just, it's like the origin story and the falling from grace of a con artist, like all in one movie. You're seeing this whole arc take place.
And it's pretty much flawlessly told. I think that the biggest gripe I have with this movie, though, is that you do feel the division between the different stages of the story. I say flawlessly in terms of like when you step back and you look at the whole piece, it feels like you got a complete story. Like GDT did exactly what he wanted to do. But the experience of watching it, it feels, I understand why people say it feels long. Because every time you shift,
you can, there's like a clear like, oh, okay, cool. We're starting the second act now.
Yeah. Like it's like, okay, and now Cate Blanchett is here. Okay. And now Richard Jenkins is here. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it very like abruptly feels like the movie is shifting. And I think that is kind of a big knock on it, because if you're not fully on board, that kind of story structure is going to kind of rub against you in a big way. It didn't really rub against me at all. I was on board. And, you know, we didn't watch this movie in a theater. I'm curious how it would have played in a theater where you don't have a choice but to just sit there and watch it. But during those breaks, I kind of took a break. Like I found myself, I didn't like fully like detach myself from the movie, but like I found like that moment to kind of pause it and like, you know, go get a drink, get a snack, go to the bathroom. Like it had like that episodic sort of nature to it that I didn't find myself like struggling with the story. You know, I felt it stop and start, but it wasn't detrimental to my viewing experience because of it being kind of on HBO Max.
That's interesting that you say. And like, that does make sense. As you like explain that, like I can kind of feel the breaks and like wanting to take a little break in between those lulls, for a lack of a better term, but just kind of the resetting almost of like, here's the next 40 minutes of this movie. You know, it's funny because I watched this movie on a plane.
Oh, nice.
And after watching this, because, you know, I had like a little tablet set up and there's like small cramped seats. So you're just kind of looking straight ahead at the screen that you have in front of you here. So I'm not going to say that this is the same exact thing as watching this movie in a theater, but much like watching it in a theater, you're trapped with this movie. Whenever you're watching this on a plane, it's not like I could just like leave and go into another room and then like come back to this later. Like I'm still on a fucking plane. So I was just
locked in.
I was locked in the entire time while watching this movie. And I think that really added to my enjoyment of this movie a lot. Is like I think that the reason why you can kind of feel these like skips in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 is because there's like little mini time jumps that aren't explicitly stated all the time, but like
it is explicitly stated at one point. There
is from Act 1 to Act, whenever they leave the carnival to actually go out,
I think it's
and first start doing the mentalism kind of thing. I'm hesitant to go like how much I want to go into this movie, because I think that a couple of the things that are set up in Act 1, how they pay off in Act 3 is just like fucking bravo. Guillermo del Toro, you did it, like huzzah to you.
Specifically the conversation with Willem Dafoe.
Yes, that's the one. And when that comes back in Act 3, I like went like, fuck yes. Dude, in my Air Force and guys like,
Not Act 3. Literally the final shot.
Yeah.
The final scene with our king Tim Blake Nelson coming in to round us out before this movie cuts to credits. Like the final shot of this movie, I think is the best performance that Bradley Cooper has ever given in his whole career.
Why did
It is
Bradley?
exceptional.
How did Bradley Cooper not get a single Oscar nomination for either this or Licorice Pizza?
Well, this is more of a performance. Licorice Pizza is fun. Like that's a great moment in that movie.
I'm just saying, like,
at least give
him, because oftentimes it happens with the Oscars, you know, where somebody will get a supporting nomination, but it's like, well, also they did this thing this year, but we can only
Andrew
really
Garfield with
one.
Spider-Man.
Yes.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe with Spider-Man, Card Counter, and Nightmare.
Let's fucking
no love for
absolute fucking king. Like he's so good. I think that this might be my favorite Bradley Cooper performance.
Okay, let's have this conversation real quick. Okay, so
cross out conversation.
Cross out
Limitless.
No, hold on. Cross out Rocket Raccoon. Like,
okay. Yeah,
we're not talking Rocket Raccoon. Okay,
that wasn't there.
No, because when I pull up Letterboxd, all those movies are at the top.
Oh,
for him. Okay, I think the only movie that this scratches up against is A Star Is Born.
Okay. I mean, I think that is A Star Is Born. He also directed. So there is that whole side to it too. But here's the thing about A Star Is Born is that I fucking love that movie. The movie's incredible. I think that's more of a Lady Gaga movie than it is Bradley Cooper movie. He's incredible. Bradley Cooper's the MVP because he also directs that movie and he directs the fucking hell out of that movie. But if I'm taking away a performance from that movie, it's Lady Gaga. Aside from Bradley Cooper saying, "You're ugly. You're so fucking ugly." What about War Dogs? Does this beat his performance in War Dogs?
Not even close.
What about
Sniper.
Burnt?
I need to see Burnt.
Burnt?
Burnt is at the top of my watch list.
I think, to be fair, I don't even know if I've ever actually seen this full movie, but I think that some people might say Silver Linings Playbook is up there.
He's good in that. He's good. Yeah, that's shout out to David O. Russell. That's yeah. You're a big J-Law head.
Yeah, we'll say my thoughts on J-Law coming up in just a few minutes.
Yeah, I think that Bradley Cooper has a very interesting career, and he's kind of been all over the place with his roles. And I think that this might take the cake for like his best role that he's ever done. I mean, gun to my head, I'd probably put it number 2 to A Star Is Born just because of like the achievement that movie is. But I think this is right up there. Like he is incredible in this movie. Like I said, it starts out as like nameless guy. And then
by the end, you are just like, oh my God,
you're
like
so
fucking
wrapped up into it. But let's talk about the GDT of it all, because the advertising of this movie was like, what is going on? Like, is he a werewolf? Like, what is happening?
Dude, I have so many issues with how this fucking movie was rolled out. They dropped the ball with this movie.
But the thing is like, it's GDT. I love my monsters. He loves them.
He loves his creatures.
So you're led to believe that this is going to be some kind of supernatural thing, because it's the guy who made the fish fucking movie. It's the guy who made the Pan's Labyrinth and Hellboy and all these things. This is also
an adaptation of a 1947 movie,
which doesn't involve any supernatural things.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. No, I get that, but most people don't know that. Nobody has seen that movie. You could do anything.
Enjoy your film. What? You don't watch 1947's Nightmare Alley to prepare for this one? Oh, okay.
So, you go into this thinking like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What is the hook? What is the monster hook to this one? And it turns out he's a monster all along. The whole time.
The real monster is the friends we made along the way.
Yeah. That's the thing. And like, I don't want to give too much away about how this movie ends, but that's why this is up there with like my favorite endings of all time. Like, maybe not all time, but like at least the last
few. I mean, this is just a perfect.
The last 5 to 10 years. Like, this is up there with like Whiplash. Like it's that kind of ending.
It really is. It's that kind of an ending because you can feel it coming. Like you know where it's going, and then like just one line is said, and you're like, oh no.
Right.
Oh, that's where we're going, isn't it?
It supports the theme of him like embracing who he is. He is the monster. He's always been the monster.
Yeah, I think this movie is incredible. Like, I cannot stop thinking about this movie since I saw it. I love this movie. I can't believe this movie got nominated for Best Picture. That's so wild to me that despite the horrible rollout of this movie, despite them just like really, Warner Brothers just really dropping the bag with trying to get this movie in front of as many eyes as possible, the fact that it's a hard movie still found an audience with like the awards people, and now it's being re-released and people are actually
in black and white. Yeah.
Very wisely, as the day after this was announced or this was nominated for Best Picture, they cut the window, the release window, and they just dropped it right on HBO Max. It's on HBO Max right now. Yeah, and HBO Max and Hulu to just try to get this in front of as many eyes as possible.
Please.
This movie kicks ass. I know people see the 2.5 hour runtime and they think it's not a genre movie and like, I can't get into this, but I'm telling you, watch Nightmare Alley.
Yeah.
This movie fucking rules.
It might be a little tough to recommend to some people because it doesn't have like that kind of heartwarming, uplifting thing to it, and a lot of people are looking for that in movies nowadays, you know, because of the state of things. It's not that kind of movie. It is kind of like this dour, dark movie, but it's not like a horror movie, you know? Like,
no, it's not genre, which I think is going to...
It's not creepy, scary. Yeah. It is a little slimy and nasty, but it's not like ooky, spooky, dooky, you know?
It's definitely not ooky, spooky, dooky. I can confirm that.
Real quick, it is nominated for a couple other Oscars. Production design, costume design, and cinematography. This movie looks fucking beautiful.
I'm so happy that got cinematography nom too. Like, there's no movie this year that looks like this.
It's so good.
It's like I'm just thinking about the carnival sequences themselves are both colorful and also like so grimy and gross. Yeah. Like it's so good. Love this shit.
Check it out. Nightmare Alley. All right. Another Best Picture nominee is one that you're a huge fan of. One that might take the crown as your number one movie of the year.
Yeah. So breaking news for our listeners. The big stinky doo-doo award for I think the worst movie of the year goes to Best Picture nominee Don't Look Up. So I know you talked about this on a previous episode of this podcast that I was not on. I just had a chance to watch this fairly recently in the last like couple weeks or so because it got I watched it before the nominations came out, anticipating that this was going to get a lot of awards love. And unfortunately, I was correct.
Not as much as maybe you were fearing.
Yes, that is correct.
I think got four nominations.
Here's the thing. I think this movie is like, I think not only is this like a really bad movie, I think it's really poorly written. I think that it's actors giving some of their career worst performances. I also think this movie might just be like actively harmful. I think this movie is like just bad for humanity that this thing exists. I think that it's too pretentious and too self-important to be considered a farce, and it's too fucking stupid to be satire. So I think this is a movie that's for fucking like I'm still with her Democrats. And I think that it's literally for no one else who has half a fucking brain cell left in their body. I think that this movie it's so stupid. It's like, guys, isn't politics like really fucked up right now? Like, God, what if we just like looked up and like looked around us at, isn't the world like going to shit? If we just looked around, then we would know it. It's like, I don't fucking watch movies for this. You know what I could do for that? I could just watch the news. How about we just like turn on that? If I'm trying to fucking educate myself, then I'll watch something I'll watch a documentary. I'm not going to watch Adam McKay's piece of shit movie with dog shit performances. I think this movie sucks. I hate this movie. I truly hate Don't Look Up.
Sizzling over here.
I have more. Come back. Talk to me. Give me your positives.
Okay. I think Leo's pretty good in this movie. I think he's doing his Leo thing.
He's fine.
I don't think Leonardo DiCaprio is like capable of putting in a bad performance.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's fair.
He always, and not only is it that, but he genuinely cares about these issues. Like, Leonardo DiCaprio is a environmentalist in the real world, and he is making this movie with that in mind and putting his personal feelings into this story and this character. And I appreciate that. And he gives a speech in the middle of this movie that you can tell like is from the heart. When he looks in the camera and he's like, "What have we done? What have we done to each other?" That's him. That's Leo. That transcends the character. And for that, I commend the movie. Just for doing that alone, I commend it. I also commend it for the scene where we are introduced to Meryl Streep's president character with Jonah Hill as the son, because not everybody, but like there's this swell of people that think that like the government is this evil, conniving entity that's like plotting to fuck everybody over and like control society. And it's like, no, they're all idiots. They're all fucking idiots. And I love how this movie decides to display that, because I have interacted and heard about interactions with people in government that is literally, it's the same thing as what this movie shows, where these people are just so inept and stupid that they are incapable of even thinking about plotting. They can't even fathom the idea of being diabolical because they are so dumb. The people at the highest levels of power in government, they're not plotting anything. Yeah. They're just idiots fumbling around. And I love that this movie shows that.
I hear where you're coming from there. Like, if you talk to most people who have worked in any kind of government facility, they say it's a lot closer to Veep than it is to House of Cards. Exactly. With how people are actually thinking. I think, and this leads into, I think truly, if I'm just talking like film-wise, the biggest problem in this movie, every single actor is in a different movie in this movie. Literally every performance is like, it might be good in something. I say almost every single performance. I preface that because I think some people is just like one of the worst things I've seen in my life.
And also this movie doesn't
Jennifer
have
Lawrence, I'm looking at you. I don't know what the fuck that was. That's one of the worst mainstream performances I've ever seen in my entire life. Please get off of my screen. But I would never dare say anything bad about Meryl Streep in my entire life. I would not. She's a queen. She's one of the greatest actors of our lifetimes. What is she doing in this movie? What is Jonah Hill doing in this movie? Whatever they're doing is not a part of this movie. They're part of something else. They're part of like Idiocracy 2 or something like that, which is fine. I'll see that movie. That's not what this movie is. This movie is such a goddamn mess. It's just it feels like what I was talking about before in the most anticipated movies, talking about like first time filmmakers, where it's when somebody has so many ideas and they just want to keep throwing shit at the walls. Here's the problem. Adam McKay, you've been in this game for 2 decades at this point. Like, you don't have to fucking unload the clip of every idea you've ever fucking had into this one movie.
Well, it's every idea about this issue. That's the thing, is like, this is a man who got a blank check from Netflix to expel his climate grief onto the page. That's what this is. Like, Adam McKay is clearly suffering from a lot of like debilitating anxiety over the imminent demise of planet Earth due to human activity. And he's like trying to scream about it through this movie. And of course it's a mess. Of course it's a mess. It's a huge mess because Netflix didn't rein him in at all. They just signed the fucking check and they were like, you can do whatever you want, dude. And he was like, I am going to make an absolutely manic episode of climate anxiety about the end of the world. And I'm going to go off. And they were like, all right, go do it.
I think so. Because of that reason, I think that this is so manic and it's so all over the place that it's less of like yelling about climate change. It's more like a baby screaming. And you know what people are going to do is, you know who likes this movie is the same people who already are like proponents of trying to stop climate change. This movie isn't doing anything to like bring in anybody else on the other side, which I'm not like trying to say.
I think it might though.
I
That's
don't
the
think
thing.
I think that's fucking wishful thinking. I think that's kind of the problem. I'm not trying to get fully political, but I think that's like, this movie is like the problem with the Democratic Party as a whole is what I'm getting at with this movie, is that I think this movie is living in this fucking Westworld brained idea of like, what if we could just all like reach across the aisle and get along, get through this? No. And I think that's fucking stupid. And I think that we need to evolve past that.
I think what it is this movie is reaching a lot of people. It is very, very widely watched. Of course, it's fucking Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, if people see Leonardo DiCaprio on Netflix, they're going to click. That's just how it is. That's why he's in this movie, right? And I think that is leading to this movie being seen by a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't see a movie like this, right? I feel like that's part of the power in it. I understand the movie's not very good, but that aside, the message of it, the idea that it's trying to get across is being successfully, to some degree, being communicated just by that sheer raw metric of people sitting down to watch this movie that otherwise wouldn't, because Leonardo DiCaprio's face is on it. And through that, they're consuming this information. And a lot of these people are people who, let's be honest, probably do not give a shit about voting or government or anything in that regard. That they're like the kinds of people who are like totally fine with sitting out every cycle, and that maybe we're like, hey, Trump's not that bad. He's not that bad. Like, let's be honest. He's not that bad. And then maybe once he started like threatening to overturn the electoral system, they're like, maybe he is a little bad. Oh, he's exacerbating the pandemic. Oh, yeah, maybe he is kind of bad. Maybe those people are the ones who are being swayed. The ones who are like totally okay with sitting out the entire political process. And we're like, come on, calm down. He's not that bad. It's Trump. Yeah. And now they're like, you know, a lot of people have been radicalized since COVID hit. And since we've been like in this constant state of like, you know, societal flux. Those types of people who pre-pandemic were not aware of like the big issues facing humanity and now are, those people might be the ones who get hit with this movie. And, you know, maybe it's not going to cause them to do anything. Maybe it's not going to get them to do anything about it. But at the very least, they've seen the movie and they understand that these issues are important. And beforehand, they didn't even know that these issues were even a thing at all. Because that's the thing, dude. Like, there's a whole faction of people that like they don't even clock climate change as a thing. They're like, I'm going to go about my life however the fuck I want to, and I'm not going to care about any type of environmental impact at all. And yeah, this movie doesn't work as a movie, but maybe it'll get some people to start thinking about those kinds of things.
I hear what you're saying. I think the problem is this movie's like 2 hours and 15 minutes long. So at the end of the day, also, cool. Yeah, you have like really good ideas. You have a good base from where you're trying to come from. That's great. I'm happy for you. You're also making a movie that's supposed to serve as entertainment content. Right. I think you're giving way too much credit to these people, to the people who watch this. do you really think that people, like, most people don't think about things like us? Most people see a movie and they're just like, I enjoyed that. Time to go about with my blue collar day. And they never think about it again. That's what most people do, especially with something like Netflix. People just, they're clicking on it and it's just in the background while they're fucking cooking. Like, that's not, I think that you're giving way too much credit to this middle American kind of neutral voter, not really kind of without a party, this type of person. I think that person doesn't really exist. And I think that this movie, frankly, I don't think that's a good enough movie to change anybody's opinion. I think this is a movie. I think it's self-satisfaction for Democrats, and it can act as talking points for the Tucker Carlsons of the world. And I think that that's basically what this movie lies. I think that's the same exact thing as Vice, except frankly, I think Vice is a more well-made movie than this. Vice is at least a movie. Yeah. This is just a collection of ideas. And I think that just like Vice, it's going to have literally no one's going to think about this movie in 3 months. And I think that people are already stopping thinking about it. And so therefore it has no impact and it only lives on as a movie that's on Netflix.
Tell that to the Academy.
It's a bad movie. Well, I hope that it gets fucking shut out. I hope this movie doesn't get anything. And also, my fucking queen, Ariana Grande, didn't even get a goddamn nomination for Best Original Song. Grant, it's a bad song. I'll say it. It's a really, really bad song. And Ari, save your Oscar win for something better than this shitty project.
The better song is the closing credits song with Bon Iver. That's the better song.
Yeah, I guess.
We will see
is this
you next time.
Is this like the worst post-credit scene that I've ever seen in my life?
Oh, the
it's up
spaceship.
there. Yeah, it's really bad.
You know that's going to happen. That's happening right now.
So, like,
the planet is dead and the billionaires
just
are
real quick,
bail.
because I don't want to keep talking about this movie. I hate it. I fucking hate this movie.
Wait until it wins Best Picture.
If it wins Best Picture, here's the thing. I'm banning us ever mentioning the term Academy Awards on the show ever. Okay. I know I did a whole thing about the Academy Awards. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to fucking quit on the Oscars forever if this movie wins Best Picture. I think that some of the performances are really bad. I think the J-Law I think that we need to stop. Like, we need to stop casting Jennifer Lawrence and things.
I don't think everyone's bad. I think Cate Blanchett's
actually great.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Between this and Nightmare Alley, I love Cate Blanchett is like buoying movies. Nightmare Alley is great,
rules.
But she just fucking kicks ass. Her and Leo's connection is the best part about this movie by far. That's the only reason why this movie isn't like a Titanic failure, is because in that little section of this movie where it becomes kind of quiet, becomes almost like playing with Leo as like sexy nerd guy. Yeah. That part is great.
Yeah, he becomes like
awesome.
Anthony
I love
Fauci doing like infomercials about like
that whole section is fucking awesome. I love that little nugget of this movie, but that's just one of like the 1,500 movies that this movie is trying to be.
The moment where Jennifer Lawrence comes home to her parents and they're like, we believe in the jobs the comic will bring.
Fucking great.
That is real shit. Like that would happen. If a comet was coming to kill us, that's real. Dude, there are people right now in the state of Florida who are going to reelect Governor Ron DeSantis because he saved the Florida economy. And meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of people have died of COVID because of it. Like that is our reality right now.
Then Adam McKay, like, direct a news segment or something like that. Don't get your fucking shitty screenplays off of my goddamn Netflix feed. One other person I think is actually kind of bad in this movie, and I love the man.
Oh, Timmy.
What is Mark Rylance doing?
Oh, dude, so bad.
Dude, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Like, Mark Rylance is incredible. He's an amazing what the fuck was that? Like, I kept watching it just being like, is he doing a bit? Like, is he doing a bit of a performance right now? Because like,
I think he is. I don't know.
stay away from comedy, my guy. Like that was just, I don't know what that was. Timothy is pretty bad in this movie too, but
Yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna do with that bit part?
The Mark
Rylance is the biggest surprise because I'm not, notably listeners know I'm not a J-Law fan, but Mark Rylance, I fucking love that guy, and I don't know.
No, you're a huge Ready Player One head. We all know this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The best Steven Spielberg movie.
No, I get what he was trying to go for. Like when you watch any interview with Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, like that's what he's trying to go for. Like this robotic, inhuman kind of tech leader. It didn't work.
It doesn't work is one word.
Maybe we'll have to talk about Don't Look Up again when we get close to Oscars and we have to lock it in for some picks.
Man, God,
we'll
do you think it might actually win some awards? If this wins Best Picture,
not.
dear fucking God, I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. One movie that's nominated for Best Picture that I think might actually have an outside shot at winning is CODA.
At winning Best Picture?
Here's why.
Oh my God, make the case.
I didn't love this movie enough to think that it should win Best Picture. But when you look at the field, okay, if you don't know, these are the nominees for Best Picture. Belfast, CODA, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, Power of the Dog, and West Side Story. Right now, the odds are with Power of the Dog.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Here's the thing. That movie is a Netflix movie. I went to bat for Roma 2 years ago. That was the movie to give Best Picture to Netflix. That was it. I fucking loved Power of the Dog. It made my top 10. I don't know if this is the one that the Academy will say it's time to give it to Netflix. I'm very doubtful. Maybe it is. I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to be perfectly fine with just giving Jane Campion Best Director, and that's it.
Just like how they did with
Cuarón.
With Cuarón.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happens? Is it Steven's time to win for West Side Story? Are we going to have another Parasite situation with Drive My Car?
Oh, man.
Is Denis going to win with Dune?
No, because he's not nominated for Best Director. Sorry.
Is Don't Look Up going to sweep it? Is Belfast going to cash in on all that early hype? It seems like a wide open field. It seems like if it does it, if Power of the Dog is not it, it could be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates a path for CODA. A very nice, soft, good, warm movie that just sits really, really well when you finish watching it. I was not on board with this movie when I first started watching it. The first 20, 30 minutes or so, I was like, this is some Disney Channel original movie ass shit with really, really weak writing. But then I stuck with it and I made it all the way to the end. And I cannot tell you, dude, the last time that I pulled such a 180 on a movie. I cannot think about the last time that I was so not into a movie and by the end completely flipped over to loving it. I love this movie. I absolutely love it. I still have to ding it for the fucking Disney Channel ass bullshit it's trying to pull in its first act or so, because you don't need it. You don't need to fabricate girl being bullied at school because her parents are deaf. Like, what are we doing? What is this? But I don't know. Something happened where certain things were seeded. The way it all pays off in the end, the last 20 minutes of this movie are incredible. I was crying my eyes out. It was beautiful.
So I talked about this movie on the podcast, I believe in January.
Sundance.
Yeah, I believe in January of 2021 because I saw this movie at Sundance. And whenever I saw it, I was like, this is a really good movie and I really enjoyed it. I didn't know that we would be talking about this movie a year later in the fucking Best Picture race. I never would have guessed that. That's something that
I guess
sense.
Apple. I guess between. Well, they didn't score the nom for Tragedy of Macbeth, so I guess they just pushed this harder.
No, well, the thing is, they pushed Tragedy of Macbeth really hard. I think that they just they threw all of their weight behind both of them, and one hit and one didn't. I really like this movie a lot. I think that it's very, very, very traditional coming of age story about a girl trying to get independence. And it does have the new coat of paint on it, where it is telling a unique story about a child
CODA.
of deaf adults.
Yeah.
Yes. Like that is something new. While the story structure, everything about this movie is traditional except for kind of the core of this movie. And I think the core of this movie is what makes this movie special, is because it's kind of like Trojan horsing a genre that is so familiar and that we've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times into something that is very compelling. Like you're talking about those last moments of this movie. The reason why that's compelling is because it's really getting to the whole actual coda of it all. Like it's getting into what that means and kind of the responsibility that you have when you are kind of born into the situation where everyone else in your family is deaf except for you. That puts the onus on you that you kind of have to become a caretaker in a way, because you are the one who's helping your entire family communicate with the outside world at such a young age that you never get a chance to actually live your life. And that's something that this movie gets really right, that theme.
I did hear some big knocks on this movie for some people pertaining to the notion of there not being in the parameters of like the world of this story, which I think is set in like New England. It feels like New England.
Yeah. Like Mass, Maine kind of area.
Yeah. Gloucester, Massachusetts. Filmed there and also in Canada. That there wouldn't be interpreters in the situations that these characters find themselves in. They're like, what are we doing? Like, why isn't there an interpreter when they're at the doctor's office or at a hearing at the citation judge's office or whatever? Like, there's so many situations where you feel like there should be an interpreter there and there's not, to create this drama.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a valid critique, but if we're being honest, there's a lot of small towns in this country that are not going to shell out the bucks to pay an interpreter to be there. Like, come on. Let's be honest here. We're not going to have an interpreter at every fucking place.
Yeah, especially if they're just like, oh, well, you could just have your daughter come and interpret for you.
Right.
Like if you do.
Or we just don't like care.
Well, that too. Yeah, I was trying to be more polite to these.
Yeah, no, like we don't, like this is America. Like people are extremely individualistic. We do not live in a communal society here where we care about each other. We are just out for what's good for me. What's going to get me my highest fucking profit margins at the end of the day. And I think that, I understand that knock, but like, let's be real. Like these people, they would not have access to the things that they need access to live their lives and do their jobs the way they need to. And I think that to an extent, the conflicts that come up in this movie are legit. I don't think that the conflicts that she runs into at school are legit, with girls bullying her for having deaf parent. That felt like insane.
Isn't music important, Ernie? Did you watch this movie and you're like, God, I love the power of music?
Don't we all have like really
that is the Disney Channel of it all. It's just like, is this what the fuck are we now? There's like a high school romance through it.
Don't we have, well, okay, Don't You Drag My Boy for hold on a second. Faradell Walsh Pilo,
yeah.
Of Sing Street fame, my guy, absolute king. He's a fucking snack in this movie.
He is a snack and a half, even if he's portraying a high schooler. Yes.
The thing with the family though is you need to create this drama. You need to create this tension. And they pull it from not the best sources. Like, I don't buy the idea of, like, first of all, this girl, like, feeling torn between her different lives. Like, that didn't really work that much for me.
Well,
and
the
like,
thing is that happened. They act like this is a new thing that's thrust upon her. And that's not something, you don't feel like these are two separate lives if you were born into this situation, because this has been your entire life. Your entire life, you've been living both of these worlds to the point where this isn't something where it's like, oh God, I can't be myself because I have these two different sides. That's the thing that's a movie moment that doesn't exist. Because in real life, you're just like, yeah, I have both these things. Both these things are my life.
The music teacher, like, texting her to come to music lessons as she's being an interpreter in the exact moment. It's like, all right, let's hold on a second.
A shout out to our guy. What's his name? Where is he at? The guy who plays the music teacher.
Oh, Mr. V.
Yeah.
Oh, he's pretty far down.
Eugenio Derbez, who's in stuff like Book of Life and what was the thing? I've seen him in like a handful. I know he's a big
Dora in the Lost City.
He's been in like Drunk and Jill and Sandy Wexler and like a few of those.
The Joel McHale show with Joel McHale.
He was in the Joel McHale show. Yeah. He's like popped up in things before. He was a guy I definitely recognized in this movie.
I really like him in this movie. I think that I really love where his character goes, and how it all kind of pays off at the end. I didn't love how by the numbers it felt in the beginning. Like, that's the thing about this movie, is that as it starts to get going, it feels like you've seen this a million times before. Like, you've seen every character before, you know, aside from like obviously them being deaf, but like this teacher guy, it's like we've seen this music teacher in like every Disney Channel movie. It's
like, it's just like, you have to choose. Do you want to have the art or do you want your family?
Right.
Yeah.
That being said, though, when you look at just the core cast here, we got Emilia Jones as Ruby, who's our main girl. We got Academy Award nominee Troy Kutzer as Frank.
Incredible. This guy. I love this is something I shouted it out whenever I did the thing. I was just like, this is going to be one of the best performances of the year, and it will go completely unrecognized. And it didn't, which is great. I'm so glad that this got fucking nominated. This is something that would never happen like 10 years ago.
He's so good.
He's so in a role that is just, you know, it's hard to define great acting like this.
Right.
And he does it.
And then speaking of Daniel Durant as Leo, the brother, there are so many sequences of these actors acting without speaking, full ASL sign language. Like, I've never seen that before. I mean, we raved about Sound of Metal. Which is an incredible movie, perfect film in my eyes, but that's a little bit of a different gear. You know, that's a guy who's like being thrust into a situation.
You're forced upon this. Yeah.
These characters, this is who they are. ASL is their native tongue. You know, it's not tongue, obviously, but they speak with their body, with their hands. This is how they communicate. And to see that like fully realized in these characters is incredible, dude. Okay, spoilers for this movie. Fast forward if you don't want to hear something that happens at the very end. The moment where she signs the song at the end.
Oh my God.
I was
when you first see Troy Kutzer like watching it and like you hear this is this big dramatic moment for her, and then it goes into his perspective and it's just silence. Just like
when she's at the first recital.
Yeah, the first recital, and then because it's just like this big moment, this big movie moment, and then you hear from him, it's just like he doesn't even get to feel the biggest moment of his daughter's life, and he doesn't get to actually experience this with her the same way that any other father would with her daughter. And then when you have that moment afterwards, when they're sitting on the bed of the truck and she's signing out the song to him.
Well, no, that's when he feels it with his hands on her throat.
Oh, yes.
When they're
Yeah,
sitting
yeah.
out there. So that's the first tear moment. That's when I first started crying, is when he like feels the vibrations of her throat singing the song. Just the two of them. That's like, oh my God, just like wreck me. And I thought that was like the big moment of the movie. I was like, oh my God, like, okay, it made me cry. There we go. Then you get to the audition where she's singing to them in the back row, and she starts signing the song as she's singing it at the audition. That's when I was like, just end
just
me.
fucking
I was
tears.
just fully sobbing at that moment. Like, I was done. I was absolutely done, which is crazy. This is what I'm talking about. Like, for me to be so out on this movie at the beginning, and me being like, this is some Disney Channel ass writing. Like, fuck this shit. I've seen this a billion times. And then by the end, to get me like that, like, it's special. It's special for sure. Also, got to shout out Marlee Matlin from The West Wing. She's in The West Wing, plays a deaf girl in the West Wing, a pollster. Yeah, she plays the mom in this movie. Hasn't aged a day.
She is like, oh yeah, no, because she was also in like The Player. She's been in a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I just, it's so wild to me that this movie has kind of gotten the love that it did, because I thought this was a movie that would be like, oh, you know, some critic circles will like it and it'll get some festival play, but like it's just kind of gonna go away. And now it's a nominee for Best Picture.
I'm telling you, man, it could sneak in there if nobody's watching.
Here's the thing, is that I think that because of the voting system that the Academy does, where they do tier-based voting, meaning that if essentially, for people who don't know, I'm going to explain this in as few words as possible, but in order for a movie to win Best Picture, it has to have 50% of the vote. So the Academy will rank their list of nominees that they have 1 through 10. And then they take it and they say, okay, does anybody have 50% of the vote? They don't? Okay, so let's remove the last place movie from everybody's list, and then we'll bump everything up. And then they do that process over and over and over again until something gets to over 50% of the vote. Because of that, I could see a lot of people having CODA at like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And that's how this movie. That is the path to victory for CODA.
Yeah.
I have the betting odds pulled up. Do you want to know what they are?
Okay, let me guess.
Okay.
Power of the Dog.
Yeah, Power of the Dog is a huge favorite. At minus 300. You have to bet $300 to win 100. Big favorite right now.
Roma was also the favorite
that
year. So just keep that in mind. Then Belfast.
Yep. Belfast is plus 550, which is honestly, you know, put $10 down, that make $55. That's not a bad a bad bet.
I just feel like come the night of the Oscars, I feel like Belfast will just win like one Oscar. Like, we could see like Kenneth Branagh walking away with like screenplay.
Here's
and
the thing is that I hope so, because I think Belfast is kind of fucking boring. But that's just me.
Okay,
I'm
number
not an old
3
white man at the end of his life.
Is West Side Story at number 3?
Yeah, it is 8-1. Yeah, West Side Story.
Okay,
Stephen Guy outside chance.
I'm telling you, man. Like, they already gave that movie Best Picture. Don't put it past them.
Like, let's just give it to this movie.
I'm telling you, dude.
What if, you know what's good is if we just award the same movie twice to like really
That's
affirm.
such an Academy thing.
Yeah, to like really affirm, like, hey guys, we were right the first time, by the way. Like, we got it right the first time, and now we're gonna get it right again.
Is CODA after that?
No, so next
Drive My
up,
Car?
tied for fourth
Don't look up.
is Drive My Car and Licorice Pizza. Licorice Pizza, both of them at 15-1. I think Licorice Pizza has 0% chance of winning. I love it.
You're not smelling that soggy bottom in the air?
I think I do think that PTA is going to win his Best Original Screenplay Oscar, so he'll finally get a little gold man.
Not if Kenneth Branagh has anything to say about
No, well, actually, so let me scroll up here, because
Hunter, you do know that PTA is doing the
Belfast is kind of right behind there. And look at God, if
PTA
Belfast
is doing the interview circuit right now, and he is saying things that he should not be saying if you want to win an Oscar.
I love PTA so much. I'm in love with this man. I just hope him and
He
Maya
needs
Rudolph
to
live
shut the
life.
fuck up.
God, I want Licorice Pizza to win so bad. I actually, my outside pick, if I'm going a long shot bet for the Oscars, it's The Worst Person in the World wins Best Original Screenplay at 25-1.
Yeah.
I
Honestly,
think that there's a chance where people are just like, oh my God, this won Best Original Screen, where everybody's like, you know what? Kicked ass was a screenplay for Worst Person in the World. We'll talk about that in a later episode. Next up is CODA. CODA, Dune, and
you're back to Best Picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't Look Up has 20-1 odds. CODA and Dune at 25-1. King Richard at 30-1. And Nightmare Alley, 70-1 odds. Should I just throw $100 on there and just try and win
It's not gonna
$7,000? Look, might as well just go for it.
I mean, I don't know if Steven Spielberg like comes out as a pedophile.
If every person on here comes out as a pedophile before the voting body closes.
And GDT's just like, I love my monsters.
And they're like, we can't.
Not those kinds of monsters, Guillermo.
God, you want to know who's favored to win Best Actress right now? Is Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos.
Okay, this is a great transition to the next movie.
Quick question, this is a quick thing because I also watched Being the Ricardos in the last 2 weeks, and that movie left almost worse than Don't Look Up, which left a bad taste in my mouth. Being the Ricardos has evaporated from my brain. That movie, I might as well have just never seen it.
I'm glad it didn't get nominated for Best Picture.
I'm already wondering if that movie is even real and if I did actually watch it. I cannot believe that both Nicole Kidman and fucking Javier Bardem both got nominated for Oscars for this movie because... And here's the thing. I love Nicole Kidman. I love Javier Bardem. I'm really happy that they can throw this on their resume as they got another Oscar nomination. This movie's nothing, and Aaron Sorkin needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
He needs to be imprisoned. He needs to be put back into jail and just like how about you take a fucking few years before you write your next movie, okay?
Right.
Aaron.
Well, don't direct.
Jesus
That's the
Christ.
thing. Don't direct. Yeah. I don't know what he's doing. Let's talk about the category though, because this is the most unhinged category at this year's Academy Awards. We got this is Best Actress. We got Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Nicole
a movie
Kidman,
that literally no one has seen. No one has seen this movie. It might not exist.
Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos. Penelope Cruz for Parallel Mothers. Olivia Colman for The Lost Daughter.
Great.
And Kristen Stewart for Spencer. All of these movies are not nominated for Best Picture, which is absolutely unhinged.
That's insane. Here's the thing. You can actually get plus money. I'm looking on Bovada.lv right now, and you can actually get plus money for any of these. Because I think that people are just throwing their hands up in the air. They're like, we don't fucking know. We have no idea what this category is.
This is going to be the one of the most fun categories of the night.
What if Penelope Cruz wins? That would kick ass. I would be so happy if Penelope... I haven't even seen Parallel Mothers yet, but goddamn would I be so happy if Penelope Cruz were to win this. Eyes of Tammy Faye. Do you know who made that movie?
No.
It's Michael Showalter.
No.
Michael Showalter directed this fucking movie, and yet it doesn't exist. Wow. It might as well just not be a real movie. Damn. It's our boy, and it's just not anywhere.
I did not know that.
That's
fucking insane.
I think that Olivia Colman might win for The Lost Daughter because I think that
she won for favorite.
Yeah, and I could see people just being like,
that's the safe choice.
She might just be the next Meryl Streep. Like, let's just fucking give her another Oscar.
And it is
now.
A great performance.
She's incredible.
It's a good movie.
It's so different from anything else that she's ever done. But then there's the one who was the favorite and then kind of fell to a point where we were wondering if she was even going to be nominated. And that's Kristen Stewart for Spencer. So you saw Spencer a while ago, right?
Yeah. I really liked it. I think it's a weird movie. I appreciate how it doesn't just do the biopic thing. It doesn't try to tell the entire story of Princess Diana. It just kind of puts you in this castle manor thing with her for like a week or whatever it is. And it just tries to convey the feeling of what it must have been like to be this person by sticking you in this house. And it's a nightmare. The movie is a nightmare. It is a weird, twisted dream. And I think her performance is incredible, and I would love for her to win. I'm happy she's nominated, but I genuinely think that this was like, it's one of those like thankless Oscar baity type of roles where it's just like, okay, you're playing somebody was already a huge figure in culture that had a lot of eyes on her. Now do that, but also put your own artistic spin on it and make it your own. And some way, somehow she did it. I think she absolutely nailed it. She captured the essence of Princess Diana and still gave it like this kind of like, you know, what's the word? Kind of like, it is kind of like a twisted fairy tale. It is like this like fantastical kind of like out there take on a real person. It is a character. She is playing a character. Yeah. She's not just like verbatim copying this person, but still she is capturing the essence. She's doing the voice. She's doing the look. It's a very strange movie. I don't know if the movie as a whole fully works that much because it is kind of slow and kind of boring a little bit at parts, but her performance is fucking amazing. She's so good in this movie, and I love watching her.
I 100% agree with everything you said about her. I love Kristen Stewart for forever now, and I'm so happy that I think that she will win. I do think that Kristen Stewart will end up coming all the way back and winning this award. I think that she is fucking amazing in this movie, and I think that she really elevates this movie. Speaking broadly to Spencer as a whole, I'd say that this movie left me a little bit cold.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is intentional, for sure. But also, I don't know, this movie it left me kind of disappointed. And that's not really something that I was expecting to say from this movie. More so because I didn't really think that this movie had a chance to be anything, to be honest. But I think that why it left me disappointed is because I think this movie actually borders on greatness. Like, I think that this movie has the potential to be something really special. And there's moments in this movie, mostly with Kristen Stewart, and kind of trying to dive into this whole, like, mental illness angle of Princess Diana is this like very like this basically this bird in a cage figure who just like can never actually spread her wings.
And the eating disorder.
Yeah. Like I think that part of this movie, like I think whenever it touches on these points, it like fucking sings. And then we have to do the biopic thing. And then it's just like every time that I started to feel momentum with this movie, it was just like came to a fucking screeching halt and just got really boring for 20 minutes. And I felt like that happened over and over again with this movie. And it just kind of left me in like a bad taste in my mouth because it's one of those things where it's like the difference between watching a movie where you're like, that was good. That was as good as a movie like that could have been. And seeing something where you're like, I guess I enjoyed it, but the ceiling was just so much higher than where this actually ended up that I just kind of feel underwhelmed by it all.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that comes to mind when you talk about that is Spielberg's Lincoln. Like imagine if Lincoln kind of pumped the brakes every half hour and like went back to try to kind of fill in the gaps of like when Lincoln was a young lad. You know, that's not exactly what this movie is doing. It's not like cutting that abruptly, but it is trying to go into those parts of her life.
Did you ever think that Lincoln had to think about his entire life before he wrote the
Exactly. Exactly. It's not that clear cut. I mean, I get what you're saying because like this movie at the end of the day remains very detached from like what you expect from a biopic. All right, little dog trouble there again, bumping around and farting and mooing. And
Look, when you got hounds in the studio, this is just gonna happen sometimes.
Much like Princess Diana had. There were dogs. No?
Were there dogs?
There were puppies.
Yeah, there was.
I feel like the royal family.
There was a scarecrow, which is kind of a dog.
Okay.
Inanimate field objects.
Whoa, sorry, we were really hot there.
Do you want to talk about the scarecrow jacket?
So I think that the big takeaway that is a good moment there, the sort of the symbolism of like her kind of dealing with the two sides of Diana, you know, the royal and the commoner, and like the conflict there. The thing that sticks with me even more so than the outfit on the scarecrow is what I shouted out during our Wabammies episode, the song, the needle drop of "All I Need Is a Miracle."
That is
the top down with her two boys in the car, just
so incredible
blasting
ending moment.
Like, I know this movie doesn't fully work, in my opinion, in terms of like as a movie, but as a character piece, a character portrait of a real person, and sort of like this heightened, dramatized take on a real person, it works really well. And it works really well because of moments like that ending bit with the scarecrow, the outfit, the sort of symbolism there, and that song. I think that just like one of the things that people really talk about when they talk about Diana is how she felt like a person. Like, that's why people connected to her. That's why she was such a sensation, because she wasn't just another member of the royal family. Right. They felt like she was a real human being. Yeah. And the fact that she died is even more heartbreaking, because it's like there was this extra layer of connective tissue that people had to her, and it was just like so tragically done. And this movie, like, it finds a way to resuscitate that and give honor to that and celebrate that without it feeling gross. It feels like nice and warm, and like you're just like, I don't know, you're just like peeking into this reality of her just being just a girl, just a woman, just a mom, and nothing else. No bullshit with the fucking crazy ass royals. Just that.
Yep. I mean, it just kind of goes to show, like, Kristen Stewart is, without Kristen Stewart in this movie, I think this is like kind of a nothing movie, which is why she should win Best Actress, is because I think that as much as I love, like, even something like Olivia Colman, The Lost Daughter, I think that a lot of credit in The Lost Daughter goes to Maggie Gyllenhaal. Like, Maggie Gyllenhaal, kind of the lost person of The Lost Daughter, because she wrote and directed the whole thing. And like, I think that the tone of that movie really works. I think that something in like a movie like this, the tone's kind of all over the place. And I think that without Kristen Stewart's performance kind of buoying this movie, then it's just a nothing. You have Jackie on your hands. I mean, another Pablo Larraín movie.
I never saw that movie. I mean, well, first of all, shout out to Johnny Greenwood, who does the score for this movie. And I think that there are people that might go into this movie wanting that version of this story that is kind of stilted and kind of jagged and kind of weird and kind of out there. And I don't know if that's just not what I expected. And I don't know if that's what most people would want from a Princess Diana movie. That being said, like, I kind of prefer that to the standard biopic. And I like that this movie is not the standard biopic. Yep. And even though it doesn't have like that warmth to it that a standard biopic might have, that kind of just like holds your hand, it's a tough trade-off. Like you lose that layer of like easiness that can come from a by the numbers movie. Much like CODA, right? Like CODA is a movie that really holds your hand, really makes things easy for you. This movie doesn't. And I think it loses something there, but it also gains a lot in terms of like actively stepping away from what a extremely formulaic Princess Diana movie might be like, which I'm so glad this isn't.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's kind of one of the things that I'm stuck in a tough spot with this movie, because you're 100% right. I'm so glad that this isn't just trying to be like another very traditional biopic where we're going to sum up all of Princess Diana's life. I'm also glad that this isn't trying to do the day in a life biopic thing, like where it's just highlighting, I don't know, like the big historic moments of Princess Diana's life. Like, think about a movie.
That's what The Crown does.
Yeah, well, or even think about something like Steve Jobs, which is a movie that I really enjoy. But that's like trying to do the day in the life biopic thing, where it's just like, this is a big moment right now, and we're going to cap in the other Steve Jobs life things, but we're going to try and do this all right here in this one movie. I think that I really like that this movie is kind of just like a weekend with Princess Diana, and it's at a certain stage of her life, but it isn't at like the best point, and it isn't at like the worst point right before she's about to die either. It's like just picking out it's plucking one moment from her life. And I love that. I just wish that it was a little bit better executed. I don't know if I think that it comes down more to the screenplay than it does to the direction, because I actually do kind of like what Pablo Larraín was kind of doing. I think that some of the tone is really well done in this movie. It just doesn't quite gel as much as I wanted it to. I think that it comes really close to just being like fucking excellent. It just doesn't quite get there for me.
Shout out to Sean Harris.
Yeah.
Plays the
Shout out
chef.
to Sean Harris. Also, you mentioned Johnny Greenwood, and got to give a shout out to the score. My God, Johnny Greenwood, should have mentioned him on like the winners of the year. Between this
and Power of the Dog.
Power of the Dog. Let me tell you right now, sidebar. I've been listening to the Power of the Dog score like nonstop.
That guitar, that acoustic guitar. Yeah.
The dissonance in this is like fucking incredible. It's not even favored to win best score. It's Dune is actually the favorite right now. And I actually think the Power of the Dog score is like one of the best scores of the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's truly
yeah, more so than this, it really like kind of is the backbone of the mood of the movie.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Very different scores between this and Power of the Dog, though.
I don't see myself rewatching this movie anytime soon, but I feel like if I did, I would appreciate the score more.
Yeah,
because it just, when I think back to it, it's like, yeah, that is part of what this movie is trying to accomplish, is that eeriness, that weirdness. And I think that it's the score that helps it get there. All right. Before we wrap up, we got to talk about a movie that did not get nominated for any Oscars.
Should have been.
And
give this movie all the fucking awards.
And that is the new movie from Mr. Paul Schrader, The Card Counter. Movie that you had on your top 10 of the year.
I think I had number 6.
And I was really hoping that I would have seen it before we did that episode, and I did not get around to it. And I just saw it last night. And I didn't like it as much as First Reformed, his last movie. But I was so on board with all the ways it connected to First Reformed. Because you talked about it when we did our best of, and like that whole idea of like, will God forgive us? You know? And in First Reformed, Ethan Hawke's character is a priest who is asking himself that question when he comes to terms with humanity's destruction of planet Earth, of the environment, and the imminent demise due to climate change and environmental collapse and ecological destruction and all these things. The Card Counter takes that idea, and instead of it being about the environment, it's about like the military industrial complex.
It's about war crimes.
And it's about like the United States like military taking things too far and having humans do absolutely inhuman things to each other in the name of patriotism, freedom, question mark.
It's the Hero of War by Rise Against as embodied into cinema.
And there's a lot of visual cues that tie the two movies together too, like Oscar Isaac just sitting sipping on a whiskey and writing down in his journal, just like Ethan Hawke does in First Reformed.
More than that, there's some lingering shots in there. It's doing the same thing that First Reformed was, where it's just like a shot will linger on a character as they leave the frame, and it will linger there for like an extra second or two.
Yeah.
To leave room for God.
Yeah. Dude, the final shot, the two hands, I was like, oh man, he's doing the thing, the transcendental cinema thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of people that might flip this movie on and think, it's a card counting movie.
I said it on our top 10. This is a bad poker movie. This is not a good poker movie. Don't watch this movie expecting to learn how to count cards. This isn't 21.
But the thing is that it does spend plenty of time in that world. And there are plenty of sequences of him playing blackjack and poker. Like it devotes its time to that. And you might get to like halfway through this movie and be like, and still think that it is a card movie. But you got to know up front, like, it is not a card movie at all. It is a movie about a man who cannot forgive himself for the absolute heinous, disgusting things he has done in his life. He went to prison for it. And now he is in a space where he doesn't feel like he deserves life, basically. Like he even says it, like he plays cards because it fills the time.
It passes the time. He doesn't play cards to like make money. He's trying to run out the clock in his fucking life. Mm-hmm. Just to pass the time.
Right.
That's it.
And that's a dark situation. That's a dark character. That's a dark movie. This movie is not a light movie. First Reformed was not a fucking light movie. Like, that's not the kind of movies Paul is making.
If you want Paul Schrader, if you want light content from Paul Schrader, then read his Facebook posts.
Right.
That's what you need. Read his horny Facebook posts that he makes.
And I think it's unfair to fully compare this movie to First Reformed. I have to, because there's just similarities there, and they share a lot of the same thematic qualities, but it's not as good as First Reformed. I do think that it is doing something that I've never seen a movie do, at least from the movies that I've seen, where it is actively pointing out and tackling the how do I say this? The disgusting reality of the United States military. Like, what is another movie that you can think of where it like so clearly outlines and spotlights the inhumane, atrocious actions of like the U.S. military? I can't think of a movie. Usually, like, we've been conditioned to see like absolutely like heroic portraits of our soldiers,
Yeah, I mean, not something like so explicitly as this, but also I will say this movie knows when to cut away at the right moments. It doesn't want to even give you the joy of like, you're going to get to see like some like gruesome, like some gore, it shows you little flashbacks, I guess, to the prison itself that Oscar Isaac is in, that has this fisheye lens, and it's so disorienting. It's to the point, like, it's kind of like makes me nauseous while watching it.
That's the point.
But there's other moments in this movie where you think that you're going to get some kind of a physical relief, some kind of like emotional outpouring on the screen, and this film doesn't give you that either, because it's not that simple. You don't just get to just have some big moment, some big like revelation in your life, and then suddenly you're good and you can forgive yourself of all of the crimes that you've done against yourself and against humanity. It's not that fucking simple, and this movie doesn't make it that simple. And I think that's something that's so genius about this and First Reformed. It's tough to compare the two. I know that's logical because same filmmaker released back to back, sharing themes, yada yada. But
they're very different movies.
They are very different movies,
Yeah.
and I think that this movie, like, it has continued to resonate with me more and more. Like, just I keep thinking back to this movie, especially I just went to Vegas, and like. I'm not going to say like I saw people who were definitely war criminals playing blackjack with me while I was there, but like there's also like just this type of guy who you can just see like they're like playing cards and they're just like
glazed
numb.
over.
Yeah, they're just like there, like where I was just like they don't have the joy that normal people do when you win money and you're like, yay, I won money playing poker. It's just, it literally is like more of just a thing of just being there to pass the time. Just kind of, this is such it loses all of the allure to it. Very notably, this movie isn't shot in Vegas. It's shot in like fucking like podunk casinos in Indiana and shit like that. Like it's shot in like all of these little places around before they can actually go to Vegas to do this tour.
Also, we should say you are a huge Ready Player One head.
My boy's in here.
Yeah. What's his name?
Ty Sheridan?
Ty Sheridan.
My boy Ty Sheridan is in here.
Wade Watts.
All the Ty Sheridan stock. I bought it all. Everybody was selling and I just kept buying it.
Yeah. So
he's great in this movie.
He is great. It is a very odd dynamic, these two characters, because they do like explicitly at one point, like Oscar says to him, like, what are we doing? Like, what's going on? Like they kind of vocalize the awkwardness of these two guys.
It's not
like
quite like a surrogate father-son thing. It's not like a brotherly thing.
It's kind of transactional. Like they're both like trying to get something out of each other. You know, Ty Sheridan is trying to explicitly get this guy to like do something for him. And Oscar Isaac is trying to get this kid to like fulfill his deep guilt. He's trying to like have this kid be his like vessel to like
exactly
clean up his wounds. You know, that's the thing that kind of is sticking with me about this movie and this character, because like at the end of the day, this movie is just a character portrait of this guy who is just like so dead inside, and like he went to prison, he got out, and he just like doesn't see the point in like living anymore. You know, he doesn't, he wraps his motel rooms in white sheets to try to simulate prison life. Yeah. Because he doesn't know what to do beyond that once he's gone. Like, this is the kind of guy we're dealing with. And you get Ty Sheridan and you get Tiffany Haddish.
So I wanted to, what did you think about Tiffany Haddish in this movie?
Loved her.
It's so
the chemistry is palpable.
Yes. Yes. 100%. A lot of people are fucking hating this performance from her. Like, I've seen a lot of really negative things.
It's weird.
From her
it's weird because it's like you feel like the movie. It's a weird dynamic where like you feel the movie is trying to be light and comedic.
Well, no, that's you. But
it's
that's
like, wait, what's going on?
It never is at any point. It's just you see Tiffany Haddish and you expect it to make a light and fight. It's like if Seth Rogen suddenly popped up in there, you would expect for it to take a comedic turn, but it doesn't. And that's kind of, it's very interesting. Like
there are moments where like I did chuckle though. Like there are moments of like a little bit of levity here and there. I think it is purposeful. I don't think this movie is like as dour as First Reformed. I think there are moments where you can kind of like breathe a little bit lighter.
I don't know. It's pretty fucking bleak, this movie is. I guess there is some moments like that.
Haddish is like cracking a couple jokes here.
She does have a couple of jokes. I want to know how this dynamic was formed. Like, who confronted who and was just like, did Paul Schrader see like Girl Trip and was just like, this is who I'm going to have here? Like, as
that's a great question.
Across from, how did these two people meet? Just because it's such an unlikely pairing. And those scenes between Oscar Isaac and Tiffany Haddish are fucking electric. Like, they do have real chemistry with each other, like you could probably expect, because both of them are incredible actors and both of them are very hot. Both of them are two very sexy people together in the same room.
I'm trying to look it up. There's no explicit quote from Paul Schrader as to,
do you think Tiffany Haddish just like liked some of his like horny Facebook posts, and then he slid into her DMs and she slid back? And
yeah, I don't know.
Oscar Isaac is incredible in this movie. I think that, and this might, I might need to brace yourself whenever I say this. I think Oscar Isaac is like borderline just as good as Ethan Hawke is in First Reformed with what he's doing. I think the movie might not quite be there, but I think Oscar Isaac is one of my favorite actors. This is a note that I didn't know that he knew how to play. We've never seen Oscar Isaac tear the chemistry out or tear the charisma out from his performances entirely. And in this movie,
Ex Machina,
he's so charismatic in that. Think about the dancing scene and stuff. That's just full Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, but there are moments
times
in that movie where he's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, but there's moments in this movie where he looks like he's like fucking Xanaxed out. Like, he looks like he is just completely glazed over.
The scene where he like lays it all out for Ty Sheridan, the scene where like the camera like slowly punches in on him as he's telling him like what he did, that is the moment.
Yeah.
That is the moment where it's like, oh, yeah, he's got it. This movie works. It all clicks. That's the scene where it all clicks, where he just like recounts, you know, it kind of like creeps up where he's like, you want to know, you're dying for me to tell you. And you kind of lean in. Everybody leans in. And then he tells you all about it. And the camera just punches in and the score swells up just slowly. You hear that rumbling. That is the scene, man. Like, he is incredible in that scene. And I don't think you cut to a flashback in that moment. No. It's just him talking about what they did.
My guy Paul
smell.
knows how to write.
That's what he's talking about. The
smell of the stench of being there.
Yeah.
Man, Oscar, like, it really is. It leveled up Oscar Isaac, and I didn't know that was possible at this point. I really thought that he was just a movie star.
Yeah, and you loved X-Men Apocalypse.
Yes,
you were all the way on board.
I thought that he was just like one of the best acting movie stars that we had, and I don't mean that in like any kind of a condescending way or anything like that, but like, this kind of showed me like, oh, is he just like a fucking incredible? Is he just one of the straight up best actors that we have of this generation? Like, give me that. Do you think that we're gonna have more notes like this in Moon Knight?
We are going to have.
Do you think that there's a point in
there
Moon
are going
Knight,
to be notes in Moon Knight?
Do you think that Moon Knight he's going to look over at Ethan Hawke and say, "Will God forgive us?" As they both just like talk about working with Paul Schrader.
They both just chug Drano and just fucking explode.
I didn't even make that connection until right now
Feige.
that both of them are just like in very depressing existential films by Paul Schrader back to back. Let's go, baby.
I'm looking at what he's doing next. He doesn't have that much lined up.
Schrader?
No, Oscar.
Oh.
He is slated to be in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 as Spider-Man 2099.
Let's go.
So
I'm into it. I don't know what that means. Cool.
Kevin Feige. Let's bring him in. Let's bring him in. Let's go.
Sick. What about Schrader? Does Schrader have anything lined up?
I mean, Schrader's one of those guys
he's got like
works.
1,000 things lined up, but like it's about what project will stick.
Paul Schrader has a lot of movies that are just like nobody has ever seen, and they're all like garbage. And
I thought about doing a Paul Schrader watch through, and then I looked at his filmography and said, well, I'll hit the highlights. I'll hit the big ones.
He has a movie in production. It's called Master Gardener. Unclear if it's based on the play Master Gardener. I don't think it is. I think he just like ripped off the title off of the classic play Master Gardener.
Anybody tied to it?
Joel Edgerton.
Hey.
Sigourney Weaver.
I'm listening.
Yeah. Joel Edgerton and Sigourney Weaver in a Paul Schrader film. Yeah.
Okay.
Not sure if it's coming out this year.
Probably not. First Reformed was 2018.
It just started filming like last week.
Oh shit! So it is happening.
Yeah,
it's a real movie that's happening.
Yeah, it literally.
So probably 2023 then.
Maybe not.
If Paul is, how old is Paul now? He's in his 80s, right?
Let's see. Paul Schrader
80s?
is 75.
75. Okay, he's putting out back-to-back movies. Good on you, Paul.
I think this movie, Card Counter, like what we were talking about in our most anticipated episode, like there were just too many movies that came out in the past year, so it just didn't get any attention. See also a movie that we still haven't seen, Come On, Come On.
God, I need to, yeah.
Or a movie that we both saw, French Dispatch, which also didn't get any Oscar love. So
I do want to ask real quick before we wrap this episode. Drew doesn't get a chance to do this because he's not here. You have a chance right now to retcon your top 10.
Oh.
Adding it, now that you've seen Card Counter and Nightmare Alley, are you taking anything? Are you sliding anything around? Are you putting anything in now? Got a new top 10? Because I will tell you right now, Nightmare Alley is in my top 10.
Okay.
I had to move some things, but...
So here's the thing. The worst person in the world would make my top 10 100%.
Yeah.
It would make my top 5, actually. Nightmare Alley. I have it at number 11 right now.
Oh.
I would have to kick out West Side Story to punch in Nightmare Alley. And I don't know if I'm quite ready to do that. I don't know if I've brought myself emotionally to do that right now. I think I might, though. You know, it's just some of these movies, like you just have to let it sit with you for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I might like,
that's fair.
I need to, I hate to say this because like I have so many other things to watch, but like I want to rewatch West Side Story and Nightmare Alley before I make up my mind. But as of now, I did have Nightmare Alley in my top 10, and then I had to put.
And then you saw Worst Person in the World.
Yeah.
Speaking of Worst Person in the World, I'm retconning it right now. After rewatching it recently, as of a couple days ago, I actually moved Worst Person in the World up to my number 1 of the year.
Oh my God.
I think that might just be like one of my favorite movies ever. It's a masterpiece. Yeah. I'd put Nightmare Alley in like the 9-ish to 10-ish spot. I'd probably have to kick out either Titan or House of Gucci. Unfortunately, I have sold my soul to Paolo Gucci, so I'm sorry, Titan. You have to leave the top 10 so that.
See, this is what I was going to say about Don't Look Up.
Paul Schrader leaves room for God in my films, and I leave room for Paolo Gucci in my top 10.
This is what I was going to say about Don't Look Up. There is no Paolo Gucci character in Don't Look Up.
Is it, dude? If there was a Paolo Gucci, then it rises up like 2.5 stars on my list.
Like that movie needed somebody that like just derailed everything.
That movie is too self-serious. Everybody's trying to be like, isn't it like so freaking epic that like I'm just like in this movie and I'm in a satire right now, and then Leo's like, I'm in a very serious film about climate change. I can't rehash that again.
What if Ron Perlman as the racist, homophobic astronaut character?
Oh man,
just came in and
you know what, Ron, I'm so happy he's still getting those syndication Sons of Anarchy checks, and I'm really happy for our king Ron Perlman.
What if they were doing like their little news coverage with Tyler Perry about the comic coming, and they were like, okay, now we'll go to the leader of the Gucci family franchise.
Bella's like, I don't see another comet coming. Don't look up.
I just want to be a comet. I want to fly into the planet. I want to soar in the sky.
You know what, listeners, just don't listen to our podcast. Just instead of listening to the next episode and a half of our podcast, just go watch House of Gucci, the greatest film ever made.
No,
I'm ready for that movie to come out on home video so somebody can make a super cut of just Paolo Gucci scene.
Exactly.
Just give me just the Paolo Gucci. Just give me just the Leto.
No love for Last Duel, huh?
Still haven't seen it.
Yeah.
You know, sorry, Ridley, you got one. Okay, don't ask too much for me.
All right, let's wrap this baby up. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and email us. WeBoughtAMic@gmail.com. Follow us at We Bought a Mic on social media. We're on TikTok now, so please follow us on there. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. Visit anchor.fm/WeBoughtAMic to send us a voicemail and donate. Thank you, all you beautiful donors, for donating. We love you. Thank you to all you new donors, including David, friend of the pod. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. And stick around for the return of our Robin Williams series with Aladdin. We had to punch it back because of Drew. We had to wait for him to return from the front lines of the Ukraine-Russia conflict.
From Agrabah.
Yeah, that is
front lines of conflict in
the Sultan of Agrabah is being courted by Vladimir Putin right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. He did. Vladimir Putin has his little snake staff, and Drew's trying to break the snake staff so that to avoid a world war. Who knows?
And then beyond that, we got Toys. You ever seen that movie? Toys?
I've never seen Toys. There's actually a really good Coheed song called Toys from a couple years ago.
I'm sure it'll be featured in the Robin Williams film.
I'm your favorite toy.
Also, we will lock in our final Oscar predictions before the show itself, and new movies coming out. The Batman and Ambulance. Ambulance is coming out soon, right?
I don't know. I love that you've wrote in Sharpie that we are covering Ambulance. We are on this podcast.
This is a Michael Bay positive podcast.
No of us have agreed to doing Ambulance, and you're like, no, we're covering Ambulance. Actually, I'm here for it.
It comes out 4 days after my birthday.
Oh, okay, so it's a birthday. Yeah, it's your birthday wish is that you get to watch Ambulance.
I thought you were in the bag for Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, I am. No, here's the thing: is that I'm here for Ambulance.
Okay,
I'm ready for it.
All right,
we'll have to drag Drew to it, but
thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you next time. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.